Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something.
Wait a minute, you ain't heard nothing yet.
You are listening to the Live to Create podcast. Hello everyone, welcome to the official Live to Create podcast, coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee. I am your host, Shane Holmgren, and I am joined today from Atlanta, Georgia by President and CEO of Brisa International and the creator of the EcoTech Complex, a revolutionary next-generation technology in green energy, wastewater treatment, water desalination, waste-to-energy, recycling, conventional power generation, biofuel production, and bioproduct synthesis. Kevin is behind the invention of over 400 patented or patent-pending technologies that are reshaping the way humans interact with the planet. Kevin, thank you so much for joining me today. It is an honor to have you on the show.
Well, it's a pleasure to talk with you, Shane.
Kevin, can you start off by telling us a little bit about who Brisa International is and what they do?
Absolutely. Brisa International is an innovative project planning company. We plan projects in the realm of renewable energy. We do wind and solar and waste energy, biomass, many other types of projects in renewable energy. And we also work in traditional infrastructure services such as water supply, power grids, and wastewater treatment and those types of things. So we also we work to combine some new areas and new inventive areas with traditional systems as well.
And how long have you been with them doing that?
Well, I founded Brisa in 2009, so 6-7 years, somewhere in that range. And so that's been the time that we've been working.
And what were you doing before then?
Before that, I was an environmental chemist. I started a company that's that works in the hazardous waste field. 25 years ago, I started that company, and it's still going today. So really, that was kind of a traditional environmental chemistry service that we offer.
And are you still managing that at all, or are your hands off with that now?
Yes, that company is still going, and I'm still managing it along with a small team. And so basically, that's been a bread and butter business for a while. And the other business with Brisa International is really kind of a way to channel some new ideas and new technologies that the other company doesn't get involved with. So both of them at the same time.
So how did you make that leap from chemist? What was the inspiration to create Brisa?
Well, I began to see some possible ways to integrate different technologies. It was kind of, I guess, it was maybe serendipitous to a point because the other business was just so kind of a run-of-the-mill regular service, very routine and very prescribed. But then at a certain point, I began to see ways to combine different technologies that normally are built separately, built in a silo, I think is the popular way to say it, where, if you want a power plant, you go build a power plant separate of any other considerations. If you want a wastewater treatment plant, you go build that separate from everything else. But I started to see ways to integrate these systems together that would greatly increase efficiency, greatly reduce environmental damage and impact, and bring tremendous benefits. So that was the beginning of starting working in that area.
Do you remember specifically which two systems you thought to try integrating?
Well, there are multiple systems. I could give you an example maybe of two of them that I think are high value. We have, for instance, a waste-to-energy system, a system that is, it's a known system out there, and there are different types of technologies that fit the bill. But basically, we're talking about taking solid waste from a city and sorting it and separating out combustible material that would normally go in a landfill, and you're combusting that material to generate power. And that's already a green process right there because you're keeping it out of a landfill where it can generate methane over the years, which is a terrible greenhouse gas. So it's already kind of a good process. But you end up with emissions, of course, emissions that are not environmentally friendly. So what we do is we combine that with an algae-based wastewater treatment system. So the algae naturally will treat wastewater. So we have a wastewater flow. And then we direct the emissions from this waste energy system to our algae. And when we're doing that, we're able to capture all the emissions and turn those emissions into biomass. Basically, the algae capture the carbon dioxide and the NOx and the SOx, the other emissions that are harmful, and generate biomass from that and turn it into algae. And then we can use the algae as a biofuel source with zero carbon. So you have an ability to get rid of the emissions issue that would normally plague a waste energy system. And while you're treating wastewater, you're also generating this biofuel that could be used. So it's the confluence of these different systems that we're really interested in.
And how or why did you pinpoint algae? Why should we care about algae?
Well, algae is fascinating. We had a design that didn't include any algae for a while. That was initial design we had, and it was good. There were several things that we were able to do, in particular in conserving water and conserving heat and things like that were really revolutionary. But when we got the algae part, algae are special because they're the fastest growing plant in the world. They're basically, if you look at them in terms of a plant species, they're the fastest growing plant by far. And in terms of a biofuel project, if we consider algae as a biofuel project and compare it to other crops that are used commonly around the world for biofuels, you can look around and you can see corn as a feedstock for biofuel, and things like sugarcane and soy and palm oil and jatropha, and all these different crops are used for energy for biofuel projects. They go out and plant a field with these crops. And looking at the productivity per acre, that's how you kind of evaluate whether you have a productive biofuel crop or one that's not so great. And so there are different ranges based on the species. The most productive one is palm oil, which is 635 or so gallons per acre per year. Algae is capable of at least 15 to 20 times that productivity per acre per year because it doubles its biomass every 4 hours. It grows explosively, and so there's a tremendous amount of potential to conserve space, to conserve land, and algae also doesn't require arable land. It just needs some type of space. So you can grow it anywhere that you have that space in a tremendous efficiency compared to any other type of biofuel crop that you could do.
So why haven't more companies harnessed algae before now?
Well, there have been some that have dabbled in it and some who have had some success. But when we started to look at algae, it set us onto a 5-year research project in determining, well, where is this technology? And let's look all around the world and see what we can glean from all different types of projects going on. And what we found is that some people have part of the solution here, part of the solution there. Some of it's in Australia, some of it's in Europe, some of it's in the United States. But no one really had the whole picture put together, and even more importantly, no one really had it put in a context where it could be set up to be successful. And that's what the EcoTech does. We put it in to context where it can be effectively used to integrate these different technologies that are normally not even thought of as being together, and then it becomes a very powerful force.
And you're the guy that put it all together?
Well, I would say that I came up with the creative pathways and the ways to integrate it, and then I was working alone on it for about 4 years, and then eventually I brought in a team to help with various areas of biology and engineering to kind of fill out some of the concepts and to really get down to best approaches in some ways. But in terms of the basic layout, I was the one who kind of mapped it out.
And I'm curious, because you're running a different company at the time. When you're a chemist and you're an inventor, an engineer, when I'm out, I'm a musician, so I'm always humming something, and I'll make a note into my voice recorder. Are you scribbling stuff on napkins when you're out at the restaurant, taking ideas for building complexes?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of kind of, I guess, a lot of the mad scientist approach going on, if you will. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of time spent that people were doing normally out enjoying themselves and doing this or doing that, and I was locked away working on ideas. I think that, I remember many times, you mentioned a restaurant, many times going to a restaurant in the evening and sitting down and working when everyone else was sitting there talking and enjoying themselves. But I was focused in on something. I saw something and I just couldn't stop until I got it done. It's kind of like maybe painting the Sistine Chapel, and from my standpoint, just having to really develop the idea, to get the idea out there, what I was seeing internally, and really condense it into practice. And so, yeah, just a lot of work here and there, a lot of nights, a lot of weekends, a lot of time to really hash it out and make it into something that we could use.
Well, I'd say you're on to something, because now you've got this EcoTech Complex. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and what it does?
Absolutely. The EcoTech is an integrated infrastructure and utility complex that includes, as I mentioned, I've alluded to it here, but different facilities that are typically not located together. For instance, power plants and wastewater treatment plants together, desalination plants together with those two components, waste to energy also integrated together, and then an algae biofuel plant, a biofuel research plant, and a biofuel refining center, and some other potential plants such as a sludge processing plant and a water bottling plant that all add value as well. And so basically we're talking about a way to integrate and map these resources together, or these facilities together, where they use byproducts from one system in another system to create greater efficiencies and to eliminate environmental impacts.
So this EcoTech Complex, it's a modular unit. If you've implemented all the systems, is it 7 systems, 8 systems?
I guess you could say there are 7 main systems, and then you start getting into optional systems as well that can be added in.
And each of the individual systems are powered almost completely by the byproducts of the other systems in the unit?
That's right. There are major either fully powered or major contributions from the other aspects of the plan to either completely fulfill fuel needs. For instance, we don't see any need for any outside fuel to basically power the facility in full in most scenarios. In some scenarios that would change, but basically it's designed to, we mapped it out initially for 2 million people to supply all of the power for those people, to supply all the drinking water, to treat all the wastewater, to eliminate all the solid waste, and to generate fuel streams and all of those type of things necessary for society to function without any type of external power source.
And what is the first? Obviously, you have to have some sort of energy input. What is the first stage in the process? Is it solid waste treatment?
Well, you have a confluence there as well. You have the algae are really the power cell. It comes down to what powers it. So the algae require, in our design, municipal wastewater and municipal solid waste that is combusted to produce gases. And we take the stat gases, which are also necessary for the algae, from that process, or we just have build a power plant in the system, or use an existing power plant in order to capture emissions. So we have emissions and wastewater coming together, which causes the algae to grow explosively. And then we are able to then capture the algae from that mixture and that process, and go to the stage of generating the fuels, which can then go back to the power plant. So you have this loop of emissions going from the power plant to the algae, and then algae providing fuels back to the power plant, and at the same time treating the wastewater and reducing and releasing usable water that can be recycled back in the system and eventually become drinking water again.
So how would you pitch this to me? Say I'm the mayor of a town and you guys want to come in and implement your full system. Sort of in layman's terms, what would you tell me? This is why we should do it. Here's how your city typically runs. Here are the problems with it. These are the problems we solve. This is what you get from it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll cut it down to maybe the more basic explanation. because there are a lot of facets there. But I would say that we can, that Mr. Mayor, we can take on all of your solid waste, we can take on all of your wastewater, and we can take on all of your emissions and basically use those to generate fuel. We can treat your wastewater at about half the usual cost of a traditional system, and at the same time generate fuel, and at the same time mitigate these emissions. So basically, we're able to provide value, tremendous value from the waste, the value of the waste, and the fuel value of the waste, and to generate clean water. We can reclaim water that's not reclaimable currently, and thereby head off drought and things like that as well. So it's a total solution.
Are there any major cities right now that are using this or any part of the technology?
The technology is just 5 months out onto the marketplace, so we just got started in terms of bringing it out there after 7 years of work. So there's been a lot of time spent on working out the solution and what it looks like. We are currently marketing, and we have interest from many locations. We have presented it, and we have, I think we've counted at least 7 locations now with a serious interest in developing studies and looking at it. Yeah, so it's going very well.
So what has been the reception so far when you go and present this? Are people skeptical? Or are they gung-ho jump on board about it?
Well, we've had really everyone we talked to has been positive because we have reactions such as, well, we've never seen anything like this. We've never seen anything so comprehensive in dealing with all of these negative issues at the same time. We've batted 1,000, and it's only been cases where I guess there's not a desire to improve in terms of, not a desire at all to look forward into anything new. That has been just a slight hindrance, but that has been overcome in all of our meetings. So we've had a great reception, and a lot of times people just say, "Give me something to sign. We want to get started right away." So it's been a very good reception.
What was the biggest obstacle for you guys bringing this to market? Was it in the development or in the pitch, or were there any hurdles?
Well, the development took a long time. 7 years is a long time to wait to get something to market. But we have a tremendous amount of IP behind it. We really wanted to make sure we were on firm ground with that, because we felt that we had discovered some really cutting edge ways to do things, and it became important to make sure that we were on a good footing to kind of understand ourselves how we wanted to work and what the possibilities were, and to become flexible worldwide also in what we're doing. So we spent a lot of time on that.
Where do you see this in 5 years from now?
Well, 5 years from now, we believe we'll have projects all over the place. We expect to have some in the Americas, some in Africa, some in Southeast Asia, probably near term, even Europe as well, and the Middle East. So we're definitely looking to just bring it out there and let the benefits be felt.
Yeah, when I watch the video on the EcoTech project, I get the feeling that I'm either at Epcot Center or at Tomorrowland, or that I'm watching Star Trek or something. This is visibly the technology of the future.
Well, thank you very much. It's really, it really has come together beyond what we could have thought. When we started working on it 7 years ago, the technologies did not exist to do what we wanted to do. And in the process of us working toward that goal, the technologies fell in place. So it really did kind of come together in a way that we couldn't have even imagined, in terms of having the right technologies and being able to put it together. It's just been a tremendous thing to see happen in front of our eyes.
So one of the questions that I've asked all the guests is, why do you do what you do? And sort of universally, one of the responses that comes out a lot is, I want to make an impression on the world. I want to leave the world in a better place that I found it. I don't think I've come across anybody who has found a way to impact the world on a global level on a city level, on a nation level, on an individual level, the way this looks like it has the potential to do. What do you ever reflect on something like that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm in my late 40s, and it may have something to do with that. But at a certain stage, you get to the point where you say, really, why am I here? What is my calling? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? And what kind of impact am I supposed to have? You kind of get past the stage where it's all about me, hopefully, at some point. Mm-hmm. But, at some point, you start to say, well, there's a reason that I was born, I was put here. And for me, faith is a really big part of it, and I just began to say, well, is there, what do I really want to accomplish? And I determined that, at some point I want to accomplish something spectacular, something that's unprecedented, something that's earth-shattering. And I won't be satisfied if I don't do that. Something inside me was just like, look, I really want to fulfill my destiny that I was put on earth to accomplish, first of all. And when I meet my maker, I want to be able to say, okay, I did what you wanted me to do, and here's the result on humankind. Here's what happened because I was simply obedient to what I was called to do, and use my talents accordingly. So yes, that's a very big concern, and really, that's kind of my motivation. What is it going to look like in the end?
That's what gets you up in the morning.
Will I be able to say I accomplished what I was supposed to have done with my life?
Can you talk about the impact that implementation of this technology would have on maybe a developing or a third world or just a very poor country? You guys come in and install this. What does it mean to those people? Absolutely.
Well, I'll give you an example of I can't talk about the location, but I can tell you about the conditions of a location that we're looking at implementing right now. This location is, they have of course, a population with a wastewater stream, and the wastewater is not well treated. They treat it in a very basic fashion, and then they dump it out into the ocean. And that's problematic in many ways. And then they also have solid waste that they can't dispose of properly. They have landfills, but the landfills are leaking and leaching into the groundwater supply, and the groundwater supply is being depleted because they're using, they're pulling water out of their aquifer, the underground storage area where the fresh water supply is. They've been pulling water out of it, but they pulled so much water out of it, they're in risk of the aquifer being intruded on by salt water, which is, they're on the coast. So basically salt water can get into the aquifer. So what we're proposing to do there is to say, look, we'll take your wastewater, we'll treat it to a very high level, and instead of dumping that out in the ocean, we'll inject it back into your aquifer. And it'll save the aquifer from saltwater intrusion, which would devastate their society, because then they have no irrigation or no drinking water supply. So we'll be able to save the aquifer, and then we'll be able to also solve the solid waste issue and generate power from that waste, and then generate additional fuel as well. And they also have a power plant locally that is dangerous. It's emitting emissions that are harmful to the people. We'll be able to take on those emissions, put those through the algae system, and get rid of that issue at the same time. So they were very pleased to hear the benefits of that, and that's what we would hope to do in many locations.
And then, so what would be the holdup from immediate implementation?
Well, we hope to be engaging in studies in the very near term. We're very close to that. We just simply had to bring the idea out there, present it, and get approvals, and then we have to get sources of funding within the government structure. So we're really at the end of that process. We feel like we'll have some studies going on at many locations in the next couple months.
When I hear you talking about the different implementations and the solutions, you connect a whole bunch of different dots, whereas a lot of people, when they tackle a problem, they're trying to connect 2 dots or maybe 3 dots. You've got this like pinpoint map of dots you're connecting. I'm curious where that comes from, like what your creative upbringing as a kid was like. What kind of stuff were you into?
Well, that's probably the curious point with me, that I was not really creative for a very long time. I was a boring scientist for almost 20, probably 18 years. I was just working my job, working something that's very routine, very prescriptive, and mapped out, and in a regulatory framework. So there wasn't really much happening in creativity for me for a very long time. And then I ended up having some hard times, encountered some very hard times in my life where I've lost all my money. For instance, when I was 42, I lost everything I owned, and basically there was a time of real soul searching and a time of deep prayer and meditation and thought as to where I go from here, and basically, but I wanted to do something, as I mentioned, that was groundbreaking, that was creative, that was revolutionary. And this gets very personal, but I spent a lot of time in prayer, and I came out of that with a very clear sense of desire to move forward. And also, my prayer was, okay, God, I lost everything here, but at least give me one thing. There's only one thing I want, and that's creativity. And then, so that was my prayer at that very low point in my life, even though I had nothing to stand on. I had 2 children and a wife to support and no money, and everything looked very grim. But at that point, I had these ideas, and I just needed to have a creative sense to really push them through. So I sat down and started working on the things that I had as far as ideas, and all of a sudden it's like the curtain lifted, and I began to see these things in a new way. I began to see connections. I began to see loops and interactions and ways to conserve resources, ways to use byproducts that just like they're popping off the page. And I began to just write and draw and map out ways to do this. And I became kind of a man possessed in a way, or a mad scientist, if you will, in terms of just needing to get this vision out, because I had a vision of so many things that needed to happen. And so, that led to basically over the years about 400 inventive ideas that we have in this file as far as our IP. 400 things that never existed before that came out of that process.
Is this stuff that's patented?
Yes, patents have been filed, so they're in the process of being patented.
So one of the things that is most curious to me about creative people is like what their process is. What time of day do you get up early? Do you stay up all night working on stuff? Do you dedicate a certain amount of time? When you got up and you said this veil had sort of been lifted and you figured out what the mission is, what did your daily routine look like?
Well, that's something that probably most people would not relate very well to, but I got up, and the very first thing I did was spent about an hour in prayer or so, something like that, and then began my regular job. I jumped in there with my 25-year-old, very routine, very mundane company, worked on that, and just got to a point where, I was finished with that work, and then I started on the Brisa work. So Brisa took me through the evening, sometimes into 2, 3, 4 a.m. as late as I needed to go to get to a breaking point. Kind of when you're in an artistic mode, the creative mode, there are kind of certain, you get to where you're just, like if you're writing a song, I imagine music, you're in the middle of something, you just don't want to stop until you get it to a certain point where you say, okay, that's out of me, and that's out on paper, that's drawn out, and that's mapped out and described the way I need it to be. And then you just go, okay, now I can, you know the feeling, right? Just, okay, now I can stop here and take it up again. But it was evenings, it was the weekends, it was a lot of work, but basically under inspiration, under a sense of, wow, I'm doing something here. I didn't have any assurance that we would end up with anything marketable or that would come together. Back then, I just knew that I had something inside of me that was inspiring me. So I worked at whatever hours were necessary to do it.
And then what time were you getting up in the morning?
That kind of varied, depending on how much I was working through the night.
Are you one of those people that can function on like 2 hours of sleep, or do you need a solid 8?
I tend to get my anywhere from 4 to 6, somewhere in there. It's you don't want to destroy yourself by overdoing that, but it basically, I did some kind of, I guess, unique ways of saving time. I would go out to eat in the evenings and pull out my computer and start working while I'm eating, and work through every meal. I mean, basically every meal for years I worked through, except for a few that I had with my family each week, and sacrificed a lot. But I would be sitting there in a restaurant working on things while everyone's just talking and socializing. But, I had a goal in mind. I had something that was really, really pressing and important to get to. So I spent a lot of productive hours eating and working.
I'm very interested in talking about goal setting. Was yours in terms of like a timeline getting something done, or a specific system solved or implemented? What did a goal look like for you in this process?
Well, I think that it was such a large undertaking that it was really hard to see the beginning and the end for quite a while. In getting into it, there was a sense of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go that was clear, but in terms of what it would take to get there and how long and how much research, it was really hard to tell, because we actually had this algae part was kind of a theoretical solution, and we didn't know how practical it was. We didn't know if it was going to be present day or if it would be something we could project into the future to be able to do. So that took 5 years to figure out, really, of worldwide investigation, worldwide research. And so once we got to the point of having that and saying, okay, we know we can do what we want with that technology, then it was kind of a race to finish up. We said, well, now we're on a timeline because we know that we can get to market and we can offer something that's going to be spectacular. Before that, it would have been pretty good. Some pluses, some good things about the system, but when we got that part, it was kind of mind-boggling what we could do, and we realized it. So we set aside a time frame of about 2 years to get to market from that point.
Was there any point in this process where you kind of threw your hands up and just said, I don't even know if what I'm working on is viable. I don't know if it has any value. I don't know if it'll actually work. Or was it one of those things where you go, like when you run a marathon, you go, I know it's going to take this much time. Some parts of it aren't going to be fun, but if I just keep plugging away, I'll get there. Versus, I don't know where I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I'll just keep trying.
Well, that was probably one of the more interesting aspects, because we had no assurance of success. We had no assurance that we would get to anything marketable or successful. But it was more of a matter of inspiration for me, more of a matter of saying, well, I feel like I'm on a mission. I feel like I've been given something, some insight, as I mentioned, probably through divine revelation, where I'm able to, there's something driving me here, toward a goal. And it feels right. It feels good. It feels like it's what I'm supposed to be doing. I had many discussions with my wife about this, because, she's kind of going, well, gosh, what are you doing? It was pretty weird being married to me for quite a while, but I think she realized that there's something inside of me that I had to do. It's just one of those artistic kind of drives where you have a vision, you have something, and it's what you're supposed to be doing. You don't know if anyone will like it. And in the process, I told my wife, I don't know if we get to the end of this and everybody hates the idea, or if it ends up being, good or kind of okay or what, but it's something I have to do. I just have to see this through, and, please bear with my total weirdness of my schedule and all the sacrifice and, all the, not having any Saturdays to be together. But it's something I have to do, and she was so gracious to understand that.
Did she just have faith in you and whatever you were doing, or did you actually explain the vision to her and she got what it was you were trying to accomplish?
Probably both. I told her that kind of what I was looking to do, and she said, I don't think that enough may not have been enough to get us across the finish line successfully married. But I think she saw really, as it went, that really what I was after is something that was inspiring me and was in my heart to do, in my mind to do, and that I think she just realized that this is part of my destiny as well, and she was able to really kind of fall in line with it, and it was amazing. She's an amazing woman to do that.
So you've gone and you've sort of built something from scratch. On a global level, you've undertook this monumental task. If you were given a commencement speech, what pieces of advice would you give to people who wanted to go change the world in a similar fashion?
Well, I would say, don't think like everyone else. Don't aspire to be like everyone else. Don't aspire to do things the way they're normally done. But open up your mind, open up your heart, and open up your spirit. And be a spiritual person. Really seek what it is that God has for you, and seek to be in tune with God, and to be in tune with your destiny. And don't let anyone ever tell you can't do something, because you can. You can do amazing things. And the first thing is to believe that that's possible.
That's awesome. I actually used that phrase that Will Smith said, don't ever let anyone tell you can't do something, that he said to his son in The Pursuit of Happiness. That's one of the phrases that's in the bumper music for our podcast. So that is awesome.
Very good.
Sort of counter to that, what single cautionary tale or what few cautionary tales would you tell somebody who was starting out on this Herculean journey?
Yeah, for me, I would say don't chase every good idea. Don't chase everything that looks to be like a good idea. That's why I emphasize the spiritual part, because there's so many things that I've come across that look to be infallible and just incredible ideas and incredible things to pursue. And you start chasing these things, and you realize that you've been thrown in the pit fire and you're burning up, and so you can't judge by the outside, and you really have to have a spiritual component to be led correctly and to get into things. Because the thing that I did, I couldn't tell any other way than spiritually that it was a good idea. I just felt right spiritually, and it felt right with all of my talents and abilities on top of that. But you don't chase everything, but find out really what you're called to do, and do that, and you're going to be immensely fulfilled and more successful than you could ever imagine.
How do you tell the difference between a good idea and an idea that sounds good or looks good?
You can, if you're spiritual, and I'm not trying to harp on that, but I think that's such a big part that a lot of people are missing in their life. If you're spiritual, you can get a feel for things spiritually, rather than just mentally and artistically, or whatever realm that you can kind of discern the value of something. Sometimes you sit down and you'll talk to people. I remember sitting down with people, and they said, okay, here's what we want to do. Here's the plan, A, B, C, D, F, G. And it all sounds wonderful. It sounds like it can't miss, it can't lose. But then something about it just doesn't smell right. It's like there's an odor behind. It's a spiritual thing where you just say, there's no reason to believe on the surface that there's anything wrong, but something just doesn't sit right. It just doesn't sit right. And you go, gosh, I'm being warned here, And it's not like God shouts in your ear and says, go away, these are bad people. But he'll put something in your heart that says, look, be careful here. Just be careful for what you're doing. So anyway, there's just a very, there's a spiritual dimension to discerning things that goes beyond just what you can evaluate mentally by hearing ideas. It could sound like they're a pot of gold, So that's the way to work with it.
Okay, so a lot of if I've got musical artists on or visual artists, I can direct them to a website and they can buy a product or order a book or download some music or whatever. What you guys are doing, what does that mean to an individual right now?
Well, if you're thinking in terms of, really what we're talking about is community infrastructure. So it's not directly bearing on an individual, but I think that any individual who wants to see environmentally responsible solutions and efficiency in their economies and all of the things that we're looking at in terms of clean water and power and renewable energy, then it's something that people can advocate strongly.
Is this something that if somebody wanted to bring this to their city, would they have to sign a petition and get a bunch of thousands of signatures in front of the mayor or whoever? Or, I mean, is this, once the floodgates open, is this just going to roll out everywhere?
Yeah, we would anticipate so. We're going to have some locations that are kind of our initial locations and demonstration locations. So we'll be able to bring people in and show it. We're visiting mayors right now. If someone were interested in bringing us to their city or knows a city particularly in need in these areas, we would be glad to go and visit and present, like we have been with mayors so far. So we're, everybody has wastewater, everybody has solid waste, everybody has emissions issues and fuel issues and all of those things. So we'd anticipate a widespread coverage, and we would be excited to talk to anyone who would like to bring it to their city.
Would success for this, would just proving the concept be enough for you, or do you want to see massive implementation?
So we definitely want to see massive implementation. It's a very practical project. It's a project that is designed to be practical above all else. To take these waste products and to do good things with them, turn negatives into positives. So, it has all the artistic appeal, that you've seen that we designed into it, but it's really all about a next generation of how to do things in terms of power and water and infrastructure. So it's our vision and our desire and our great joy to see it built in operation and providing those benefits.
All right, well, that takes us to our closing section of questions. You ready for this?
Sure.
If your job only paid the bills and not a penny more than that, would you still continue to do it?
In terms of the EcoTech, absolutely. Because it's, as I mentioned, it's for the world. It's something it's a contribution, and it definitely would be worth it for the impact that it can have well outside of me.
What talent or skill do you not have that you wish that you did?
Well, I would say probably more sales acumen. As a scientist, we're pretty honed up. As you mentioned, I've been pretty honed in on technical aspects and inventive aspects and creative aspects. So a little bit more sales ability, which I'm kind of getting a feel for as I go, rather than getting actually trained to do it. So,
Kevin, fill in the blank. I am a success if I
fulfill the purpose that I was born for.
And fill in the blank again. I'm a failure if
I'm just a regular guy doing regular things and I don't ever reach my potential.
What is the single best piece of advice that you followed to get where you are today?
I would say to put God first in everything. Also, I'd say to get past disappointment quickly, to realize that there's a purpose and a plan, and that nothing is an accident, and go forward.
What's a piece of advice you're glad you ignored to get where you are today?
I'd say you can't do this, you can't do that. I was never very keen to those type of statements and ignored them completely, and I'm glad that I did.
What character trait do you like best about yourself?
I would say that I know my limitations. I'm not relying upon myself, but rather spiritual inspiration to become really who I am.
And what character trait do you like least about yourself?
I think I'm so focused that at times I am not quite as sensitive as I could to other people. I kind of get locked in on something, and I need to be aware that the people with needs around me better than I am.
Fill in the blank. I believe every child should have the opportunity to...
I would like to see children be mentored, such that they understand their purpose, their destiny, both spiritually and mentally and creatively mentored in a way that they have good guidance.
If you could suggest one piece of self-improvement that everyone on Earth would adopt, what would it be?
I would say, again, put God first.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Wow, okay. A superpower. To see the hearts of people and to understand where they're coming from. And that would be my favorite superpower.
If you could have dinner with anyone alive or dead, who would it be?
Oh, it would definitely have to be my Lord, Jesus Christ.
A popular answer. All right, an hospitable nearby planet has been discovered and you have been recruited to help colonize it. All of your needs are going to be taken care of, but you can take any 3 personal items that you wish. What are they?
Oh, let's see. I'll take my Bible. I would take my science books, and I would take the EcoTech.
Good call there. All right, and finally, you've just won a Lifetime Achievement Award in your field. So we want your acceptance speech. There's not going to be any music to cue you or rush you off the stage so you can get to all the thank yous that you need, or if there's a personal cause that you want to talk about or champion, this is your opportunity, so let her rip.
So I would have to say thank you to God for all of your grace and inspiration and for picking me up when I was down and putting my life on a course to do something great when I never thought I could. And thank you so much to my wife and my kids for the many years of sacrifice and putting up with my mad scientist time. And also for my great friends who have encouraged me along the way. It's been priceless how you believed in me and encouraged me in all the things that I had to do. And I just want to encourage everyone, seek the goodness of God and seek His purpose for you. There's a great destiny that you have. And don't settle for anything less than all that you can have and all that you can do. And acknowledge Him in your life, and you'll go very far and accomplish great things.
Well, Kevin, it's certainly hard to argue that after seeing what you've accomplished and what basically all of humanity is going to have rolled out in front of them pretty soon. I'm really excited to watch where this goes.
Well, thank you so much, Shane. It's a pleasure to discuss it with you, and we look forward to seeing all the good that's going to come.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Kevin. This has been wonderful. I sure appreciate you being here.
So it's a pleasure, Shane. Very, very much enjoyed it.
Once again, that was Kevin Harmon, President and CEO of Brisa International and creator of the EcoTech Complex. For more information on Brisa and EcoTech, please visit brisa-usa.com. I'd like to thank everyone for joining me today. You are listening to the Live to Create podcast, and this is Shane Holmgren reminding you to dream big, be inspired, and live creatively.